NFTs are booming, moving billions of dollars in volume every month. But a lot of people still don't know what they are. Are they pixel drawings? Ads for multinational corporations? Or maybe proof of citizenship into next-gen society? In this video, I'm going to give a simple explanation of NFTs, what they are, and how they work. Let's start with blockchain. We first have to understand a little bit about blockchain in order to understand NFTs. The reason being, NFTs live on blockchain. Now we don't need to know too much, but just a little bit of knowledge will help us build shared context from which to build our foundation of understanding of NFTs. So for our purposes, we can think of blockchain as a public trusted ledger with a few attributes. A ledger is a list of records. A record contains some data. Anyone can read this ledger. The ledger has a way to prove it is correct. In this case, it means stuff like the data is correct and the records are in the correct order. The ledger has a mechanism to determine what the next record should be. Together, this means that at any point, someone could start reading the ledger from the very start all the way to the finish and understand the complete state of the world, at least from the perspective of this ledger. In this metaphor, each blockchain would be its own ledger. Each blockchain would have its own set of records and methods for performing each of the functions previously mentioned. And that's basically what a blockchain is. With that shared understanding, let's go forward and talk about what NFTs are. So let's talk NFTs. An NFT stands for a non-fungible token. Simply put, this means it's a unique element as opposed to a non-unique element. And let's give you some examples. A fungible item, i.e. a non-unique element, is something like a $1 bill. If we both have a $1 bill and then we swap them, we effectively both still have $1 bill. It's effectively the same thing. Because when we swap them, we end up with effectively the same thing, we consider them non-unique elements and therefore they're fungible. Now, non-fungible means that the element is unique. An example of this might be a car. If I have a car and you have a car and we swap them, we end up with different cars. Even if these cars have the same make, the same model, the same year, there are still attributes associated with each car. That means when we swap them, they're still going to be different. Things like different VIN numbers, different mileage, different repair histories, things like this that mean that even when we swap similar cars, they will still end up with a different item. Therefore, we consider these elements to be unique and non-fungible. Now let's try a metaphor for NFTs in general, something that I think a lot of us are more familiar with and that I think is a good parallel to NFTs. That metaphor will be trading cards. So trading cards exist with a pretty simple formula. There exists some set of cards. There are types of cards within the set. Each type is produced some finite number of times. Each of these type of cards has some metadata associated with it. Might be a picture, maybe some types, some stats, maybe some powers and descriptions. And each individual card is owned by one person. Though many people may have individual cards of the same type, depending on how many versions of that type were created. Now, NFTs are very similar in a lot of these attributes, and we'll go through them one by one. An NFT can be created with many additions, i.e. you can create more than one of a given NFT. An NFT can have metadata associated with it. This could be a picture, video, audio, maybe some properties, maybe some stats. And each NFT is owned by a person through a mechanism called a wallet. Now, while each NFT can only be owned by one person, it's possible that multiple people will have a type of NFT depending on how many editions of that NFT were created. Now let's look at a more concrete example of how NFTs and trading cards align. To do this, we'll be using some cards from the popular Pokemon trading cards. So first note that we have some types of cards here with different counts of them. So here we have Mewtwo with a count equal to 1. We have some Pikachu over here, and then we also have Bulbasaur in the corner with count 3. For our purposes, let's say that these are card types. Card types are the type of card it is, and then of course we can have several versions of that type, depending on how many the creator wants to make. So a card type is similar to an NFT ID. Attached to this card type, we can see that we do have some metadata. So in the Pokemon game, it's just going to be a picture of the actual Pokemon. And for the NFT, you would actually have some sort of media, depending on the kind of NFT you're making. Might be audio, might be video, might be pictures. Now in these Pokemon cards, we have these, attacks, these costs for the attacks, things like that. We can consider all of this just metadata. It's just some sort of text that is meaningful in some context for the card game. For NFTs, this could be, just descriptions, maybe links to something, maybe a password. Whatever it is, that is what you can attach on the NFT side. So let's continue our card metaphor and talk about how these cards, remember, these are metaphors for NFTs, interact with the blockchain. So when a card is created, some information is going to be stored on the blockchain. Some things like a unique ID for the card type, a unique ID for each individual card that was created, depending on the number of versions you added. How many of these cards exist? Who created the card? And who now will default to owning it? Any metadata you've added to the card. So remember, this could be some sort of media, some metadata, things like that. So that's how we actually get the card or NFT into the blockchain. But how do we interact with it? Well, when a card is traded or any activity is taken between NFTs, between people, those actions are also going to be logged to the blockchain. So when you do these actions, it'll be, what is the specific card or NFT that was acted on? What was the action that actually took place? And any other information you might need. For instance, like if you're trading a card, who did it go from and who did it go to? Of course, in blockchain land, it won't be an actual person, but will usually be a wallet ID. So let's walk through an example of how this kind of might work. So let's say I create a card and I want to trade it around to my friends. What does that look like? Well, first I need to create my card. So let's say I create this Alakazam card with 5 editions. So there's 5 of them that exist in the world. How this would look on the blockchain is it will submit a record. That record will say that, hey, this card was created, and then it'll have that information I have. So it'll have, all right, the ID of the card is Alakazam. It'll have 5 editions, and then the owner is going to default to me because I'm the creator. Now let's say I want to trade it to some of my friends. So let me say I'm going to trade an Alakazam to Magna. Well, we'll also add that to the blockchain. So it'll say, all right, the card was traded. What was traded? An Alakazam. One of these was traded, so just 1 edition. And then the trade goes from me, HAMY, to Magna. And this continues. So say I want to trade one to Bob. Again, we will add a record that says card is traded. That'll be my Alakazam card. Now it'll be edition 2 because I don't have edition 1 anymore. I already traded that away. And it'll say I traded from me to Bob. And now finally, what happens if Magna decides to trade her Alakazam card away to Naveen. So we add another record here. It's card traded. The ID is Alakazam. We can see that it's the edition number 1 because that's the one that was in her possession. And now it's traded from Magna to Naveen. And that's the basis of how we actually interact with cards and NFTs in the blockchain. It's literally just a complete list of all of the actions that happened in the world. And that's NFTs in a nutshell. That's what NFTs are and how they work. If you want to get started in NFTs, I highly recommend starting with OpenSea. That's where I currently make all my NFTs and sell them. It's really fast, it's really easy, it's reliable, and it's free, which I think blows pretty much any of the other options out of the water. So I will have a link to a post on how to do that below. If you still have any lingering questions or anything that I can answer below. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.